If you believe that some stories find us when we need them most, then make sure to like and subscribe, because this one begins on an ordinary afternoon that turned my entire life inside out. My name is Ethan Cole, CEO of Cole Dynamics, and I built my empire on precision, logic, and control. Yet, none of those things could prepare me for what I saw in that orphanage hall, or for the small hand that would deliver me the most haunting drawing I'd ever laid eyes on. It was supposed to be a simple charity event. Every December, the Horizon Foundation hosted its annual Art from the Heart exhibition, a fundraising showcase for underprivileged kids. I attended every year, signed a few oversized checks, smiled for the cameras, and left before the speeches got sentimental. My assistant, Claire, had arranged the schedule down to the minute. My life ran on time slots. That day was no exception until I saw her. The room smelled of poster paint, pencil shavings, and sugar cookies. Strings of paper snowflakes hung unevenly from the ceiling. Children in mismatched clothes scurried between easels, proudly showing their work to a crowd of polished donors. I stood near the back, sipping burnt coffee, nodding through conversations I didn't hear. It had been 3 years since the accident, 3 years since the world ended. And though I'd rebuilt everything else, there were still places inside me that no light reached. My daughter, Lila, had been 5 when the car went off the bridge. Her mother's body was recovered. Hers wasn't. People called it a mercy that I'd been spared seeing her small face still and pale. But I wasn't spared. Not really. Because I saw her every night. A child tugged on my sleeve. I looked down to see a girl, maybe 9, 10 at most, with large eyes the color of lake water and hair that looked like it had been trimmed with safety scissors. She wore a faded blue cardigan that was too big for her and held a sketchbook pressed against her chest like a secret. "Sir," she said softly, "would you like to see my drawing?" I almost said no. My publicist had warned me that these events could get emotionally sticky, and I wasn't built for sentimentality. But something in her tone, hesitant but hopeful, made me pause. "Sure," I heard myself say. She smiled, just barely, and opened the sketchbook. My breath caught in my throat. The drawing wasn't of a tree or a sunset or any of the cheerful things lining the walls. It was a portrait, charcoal on thin paper, of a young girl with a gentle smile, hair pulled back with a ribbon, a tiny scar above her lip. The line work was too mature for her age, every shadow deliberate, every detail alive. And the face was Lila's. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. My mind scrambled for logic. Coincidence. Maybe she'd seen an old newspaper clipping. Maybe her subject just happened to look like my daughter. But no, there was something intimate in the eyes, something only a father could recognize. "Where did you see this girl?" I asked, my voice thinner than I intended. The child blinked, confused. "I didn't see her," she said. "She comes to me sometimes when I draw. In my dreams." Her words sent a chill crawling down my spine. I stared at her, at the way her small fingers smudged the edge of the paper, unaware of the power they held. "What's your name?" I asked quietly. "Amira," she replied. "Amira Cole." My heart stopped. "Cole," I repeated. "That's my name." She shrugged. "Sister Mary says I can pick any last name I want. I like that one." The sound of her voice, the easy innocence of it, cracked something open inside me. Something I'd worked hard to bury under board meetings and quarterly reports. I bought the drawing on the spot, slipping a $100 bill into the donation jar before anyone could stop me. "Keep the sketchbook," she said. "I can make another." I didn't answer. I just folded the paper carefully, afraid to crease it, afraid to breathe too hard on it, and walked out into the cold December air. Outside, the city was wrapped in fog. My chauffeur waited by the car, but I didn't get in. I just stood there, the drawing trembling in my hand. Lila's face stared up at me, alive, warm, and possibly real. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt something I thought I'd lost forever. Not just grief, not just longing, but hope. As the fog rolled in thicker, swallowing the streetlights one by one, I looked back at the orphanage doors. The girls' laughter echoed faintly from inside. Light, fleeting, familiar. Somewhere deep down, a part of me whispered that this wasn't over. That the past I'd buried had just drawn itself back into my life, one careful line at a time. That night, I couldn't stop staring at the drawing. It sat under my desk lamp like an open wound, that faint smile taunting everything I'd buried. Logic said coincidence. My heart said otherwise. By dawn, I'd made my decision. I needed answers. The orphanage was quiet when I arrived, a soft chill in the air and the faint smell of paint lingering in the halls. Sister Mary greeted me with polite surprise, her hands folded neatly. "Mr. Cole," she said, "I didn't expect." "I'm here to see Amira," I interrupted gently. "Just for a moment." She led me to the classroom. Through the window, I saw the girl sitting alone, sketching in silence. She wasn't like the others. She didn't chatter or seek attention. She drew as if the paper itself might vanish if she looked away. When she noticed me, she smiled shyly and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You came back," she said. I nodded. "I had questions about your drawing." Her small shoulders lifted in a shrug. "She's someone I see sometimes. In my dreams." "She feels sad." I knelt beside her. "Do you know her name?" "No, but she hums songs that make me sleepy." I froze. "What kind of songs?" She hummed a few notes, slow, lilting, familiar. "Lila's Lullaby." My wife's voice echoed in memory. "Sleep, my little sparrow." I felt my chest tighten until it hurt. "How long have you had these dreams?" I asked quietly. "Since they found me," she said. 3 years ago, outside a church. 3 years. The same week my daughter disappeared. My pulse hammered in my ears. And before that, I don't remember. She looked down, fidgeting with her pencil. "Sometimes I think I had another name before Mira. But no one believes me." I stared at her, trying to breathe through the surge of disbelief and longing. The resemblance, the song, the timing, it couldn't be chance. But it couldn't be real either. I asked Sister Mary for her file that afternoon. It was thin. No birth records, no relatives, no history beyond the day she arrived. One name stood out, though. Elena Ruiz, the nurse who had brought her in. That night, I sent for a DNA test, telling myself I needed closure. The results came 3 days later. No biological match. I should have felt relief, but instead, I felt hollow. I read the name again, Elena Ruiz. It tugged at something half forgotten. I'd seen it before, buried in hospital reports from the night of the crash, a nurse from the same clinic that processed my wife and daughter's case. Coincidence, the rational part of me whispered, but the drawing on my desk said otherwise. I picked up the phone, my voice steady now. "Claire, find everything you can on Elena Ruiz," I said. Where she worked, where she lives, anyone she's spoken to, because deep down, I already knew this wasn't the end of grief. It was the beginning of truth. It took less than a week to find her. Elena Ruiz had moved twice since leaving the clinic, finally settling in a small coastal town 2 hours north of the city. Her personnel file listed her as a nurse with 20 years of service, spotless record, no disciplinary notes. Still, something about her resignation date bothered me. She'd left the clinic the same week my wife and daughter's case had been closed. I drove there myself, unable to trust anyone else with what I was beginning to suspect. Elena's cottage overlooked the sea, a quiet, wind-bitten place smelling of salt and old wood. She answered the door wearing a knitted shawl and an expression that turned from surprise to guilt the moment she saw me. "Mr. Cole," she said softly, as though she'd been expecting me. "You shouldn't have come." "Then tell me why I shouldn't," I said, stepping inside. "You worked at the clinic that processed my daughter's death certificate. You later worked at the orphanage where a girl named Amira was found. That's not coincidence." She sank into a chair, wringing her hands. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." For a long moment, the only sound was the sea against the rocks outside. Then, with a weary sigh, she spoke. "Your daughter didn't die in that accident, Mr. Cole. She survived." The words didn't register at first. They just hovered in the air, waiting for belief to catch up. "What did you say?" "There was confusion that night," she continued, her voice trembling. "2 children were pulled from the river. One, your wife, was beyond saving. The other was alive but injured, unconscious, hypothermic. When she woke, she didn't remember anything. Your wife's sister, she was there, distraught, terrified of losing the child too. She begged us to hide her. Said you would take her away, that you were already planning custody battles." "That's insane," I said, though even as the words left my mouth, something in me cracked. My marriage hadn't been perfect. My wife had battled depression after Lila was born, fragile and distrustful. "You let her fake a death certificate?" Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I followed orders I shouldn't have. She promised to come back for the girl, but she never did. A month later, she..." Elena stopped herself, pressing her lips together. I couldn't undo what was done, so I placed the child at the orphanage under a new name. I thought she'd be safe there. I thought anonymity would protect her. My hands were shaking. Amira, I whispered. You're saying she's Lila. Elena nodded, silent tears slipping down her cheeks. She started to draw again about a year ago. That's when I knew the memories were surfacing. I didn't want to interfere, but I knew this day would come. I left before I realized where I was going. The drive back blurred into the sound of the ocean in my ears, the world folding in on itself. When I reached the orphanage, Sister Mary met me at the gate, startled by the look on my face. I didn't explain. I just asked for Amira. She was in the art room, sitting cross-legged on the floor surrounded by half-finished sketches. When she saw me, she smiled. That same small, patient smile I'd seen 1,000 times before in another life. Hi, Mr. Cole, she said. You look sad. I knelt beside her, unable to speak. She held out a new drawing. This one wasn't charcoal, it was watercolor. A man and a little girl standing on a hill, a faint ocean in the distance. Between them, the sun. It's us, she said shyly. I think I remember your eyes now. The world tilted. I reached out, touching the corner of the paper, afraid that if I blinked, both the drawing and the child would vanish. Do you know who I am? I asked, my voice breaking. She hesitated, then reached up, placing her small hand over my heart. You're the man from the dreams, she said softly. The one who always finds me. I pulled her into my arms, and for the first time in years, I let myself cry. Not the quiet, buried grief I'd carried, but something clean, something alive. Outside, the winter wind rattled the windows, but the room felt impossibly warm. Later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I signed the paperwork making her custody official. Sister Mary placed her hand on my shoulder. You understand what this means, Mr. Cole, she said gently. I nodded. Yes, I whispered. It means she's home. That night, as we drove away from the orphanage, Amira, Lila, leaned her head against the window, watching the streetlights pass like falling stars. Daddy, she murmured, half asleep. Are we going to draw together now? I smiled through the blur of tears. Every day, sweetheart. Every single day. And somewhere deep inside me, where grief had once lived, hope began to sketch its first fragile lines again.